Welcome to the Food Professor Podcast, episode 47. I'm Michael LeBlanc.
And I'm Sylvain Charlebois.
Well, Sylvain, we are back. We're back from SIAL Food Innovation Show in Montreal. It's so great to spend the time with you. It's the longest time we've spent together, I think.
I know. You know, it felt like, it feels like I'm back from a honeymoon with you in paradise, in food innovation paradise in Montreal. It was great. 3 days of fun, 3 days of meeting great entrepreneurs, great companies. It was awesome. And it was your first SIAL too.
It was my first SIAL, and boy, I was so impressed. I was impressed by the crowd, the organization, Xavier. If you're listening, you and the team did a fantastic job. They made us feel right at home. We had a nice podcasting studio. We'll post some pictures of that.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was our home away from home for 3 days, and we produced some great content. So for the listeners, look for multiple bonus episodes, and each bonus episode is about 15 minutes. You did an amazing job finding and curating food people from different provinces and different products, and then even some tech, and so we got a lot of great episodes. I'm going to release them. We'll release them as bonus episodes.
Yeah,
starting this week.
This year we didn't go international all that much, even though SIAL is very internationalized. We got one company from Italy and a manufacturer of olive oil. Oh man,
good stuff, man.
I think we had like 10 trying stuff sessions in 2 days. It was it was a food orgy going on in our studio. It was pretty awesome. I mean, seriously, you can't beat that.
No, it was fantastic, and we produced some great content, met lots of great people, and looking forward to next year. So next year it moves from Montreal to Toronto, as is its habit, kind of pre-COVID. So I expect to be back and having some more fun. Basically a year from today, right? I mean, I think it's in early May next year. So
I believe it's Toronto's 6th edition. Because SIAL really was only in Montreal for a while, for a few years, but they decided to alternate between Toronto and Montreal. At the beginning, Toronto wasn't as big, but Toronto is actually getting bigger. And my guess is, in a few years from now, Toronto will actually exceed Montreal, I think.
Well, lots of. I think of head office for grocers. If we just pick one sector, you got Metro, Costco's in Ottawa, so it's a quick drive.
A lot of manufacturing in Ontario as well. So there's lots of attention in Ontario, obviously. So and it's very easy access, and frankly, the facility is really great for conferences. The floor is right next to conferences, so
makes it a bit easier to do the content.
It's easier, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, so to all the listeners, look forward to that. And we did our very first ever live stream, which was just a pile of fun. We tried some hot chocolate and some coffee that warmed itself up, and Xavier popped his head in, and it was just a blast. And for those who missed the live stream, you can go to our YouTube site, and it actually is there in its full glory, all 57 minutes. And really, it's a good, we won't spend much more time on SIAL in this episode, because just go watch that episode. That was our kind of breakdown of SIAL. So it was really great. So check that out. And today we've got a great, it's a solo episode, just you and me, but we've got a great trying stuff. Speaking of trying stuff look at this PuraVida frozen food. So generous. I mean, they sent just a case of this stuff. What's this? Mushroom, orzo.
Yeah, I mean, our freezer's full. My goodness.
Full. I was waiting for this. We got lots of great stuff to get to, thanks to the folks.
So what are you going to try, Michael?
I'm going to try the forbidden artesian.
I almost went for that one, but I'm going to be trying the tahini Buddha bowl.
Oh, that's a good one.
Oh, yeah.
I'm actually, I was debating the cilantro chicken baja bowl.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they all look amazing. I've actually tried a couple of them already. I tried the Brussels sprouts and bacon and one other because there's just so many.
Bacon.
They were delicious. Like pop into a microwave, and anyway, it was all delicious. but we'll
I had
get
to
to
stop
that.
my kids because my kids
Right.
actually start to eat all of them. I said, I haven't done my trying stuff episode yet. Stop.
Stop. That seems to be an issue in your house, but so much
I
good
know.
food. So
Yeah,
much good food. We'll have to get you a freezer marked the food professor, right? Just kind of a
with a
separate
lock.
chest
With
freezer, yeah, with
with
a combination
yeah,
lock. Do
exactly.
not touch. Do not touch. All right, so that was SIAL. We got that coming up in the episode. Let's jump into the news. I wanted to start with the avian flu. So
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been hearing a little bit about this. I didn't hear about it until I saw you. It's not really been a big deal in the news, I would say. I've seen it, but what's going on here? How big an issue is it? And talk about it for a
Well,
few minutes.
it's big news for the poultry industry and for
Mm-hmm.
the duck industry in particular. It was actually the height of the crisis. I think was actually happening last week while I was at SIAL, and I was getting phone calls and reports about what was going
Yeah,
on.
you were doing a bunch of
Uh,
interviews. Yeah.
yeah, so I think we're almost at 800,000 birds euthanized or killed as a result of the avian flu in Canada. In the US, it's over 32 million.
32 million.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
I
So
think
is this
they've
a bigger
dropped
problem is this a bigger problem in the US than it is here, or is it just
right now it is,
scale?
absolutely, yeah. Now, there's you gotta divide the farming community into 2 with the avian flu. You got poultry and you have ducks. Poultry, you can really, even though losing birds can be devastating, you can recover very quickly. The production cycle is what, 2 months, so you
Mhm.
can recover. Abbotsford in 2004 was the worst outbreak we've ever seen as a country. We had to euthanize uh, almost 20 million birds at the time,
Wow.
and chicken prices, egg prices did go up as a result back in 2004, very briefly though, for a couple of months, but they went back down again as the industry was recovering. But for ducks is a disaster. So
Mm.
King Cole Ducks and Lac Brome both were hit by the avian flu. They lost, I believe, all of their birds. But so, in order for the duck industry to recover, it will take at least a year, if not more, because the
Wow.
genetics is also gone. And so, it's really tough to get back into it. And so, I wouldn't be surprised if Ottawa comes in and offers some support, like we saw with potatoes in Prince Edward Island just a
Mhm.
few months ago. I think
Mhm.
it's really something that the feds will have to look into very seriously.
So not to get into the science behind all this, but where does this come from? Does it just is there is it a spark
It's
that
why
happens
it's
in
wildlife.
it's wildlife, right? It
It's
just happens
wildlife,
in there.
and due to climate change,
Mm.
patterns are changing. Birds are migrating in different ways now. The other thing that is a bit scary, of course, is that more and more cities are allowing city dwellers to have their own chickens as well.
Yeah.
That can actually increase risks as well. So there's
No, I didn't
risks
think of that.
are very
Mm.
different. Yeah, risks are very different from one. I've never been a big fan of seeing city dwellers with farm animals for that reason, especially chickens. It's really nobody's like few people are trained veterinarians, so you don't know for sure how to test or make a proper diagnostic, and that can impact our nation's food security. So I've never been a big fan of life. So of course urban agriculture is important, but
Yeah, yeah.
livestock, different story, especially because of climate change. So farmers, I mean, it's our farmers' worst nightmare for sure. But
Sure.
I got to tell you, Michael, I've been reassured by how things have been managed so far. The CFI
Oh,
has done
good.
a pretty good job. They've been on
Mhm.
top of it.
Mhm.
Now, whether or not they're informing the public properly is another story. It's always been a problem at the CFIA.
Mm.
We never getting the proper numbers is always difficult, but farmers are really on top of it. It's a vertically coordinated industry as well with supply management. Uh, I mean, if there is one advantage with supply management, it gets people to talk and work together, and that's what you need to deal with the avian flu.
And I was at I was a guest speaker at a poultry association event, and I was sitting at a table with some folks and started talking to the couple of guys beside me, and they were beak trimming. They had the beak trimming business,
Oh
which I
yeah.
had no idea about the whole beak trimming business. And they were just talking about how they went from farm to farm, and trimmed beaks, but that had different teams that rotated because of biosecurity. And these guys were talking about biosecurity. And I'm the average person. Wasn't thinking of all that. So I know it's very front, very thought of in the industry. This whole biosecurity. You don't have the same people going from farm to farm. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And the advantage that we have over the US is that farms are spread out a little bit more. We have more space in Canada, so it really reduces risks. But the CFIA really in 2004, the way they managed Abbotsford was a disaster. Like we shouldn't have euthanized 20 million birds, but they did learn from their mistakes. And today their approach is much more rigorous. And frankly, the approach is more professional, and they're able to work very well with industry and farmers.
All right. Well, it's a nice segue,
So
actually.
It's a positive story, to be honest, except for the fact that ducks. If you're a duck fan out there, the avian flu situation is a dire one for sure. I think for a while it's going to be tough to get ducks to find duck products, Canadian duck in any store, really. Yeah.
Interesting. Well, it's actually a nice segue to let's get into some reports from Dalhousie University from the lab.
Yeah.
And the first report I want to talk about was released Monday, I think, or Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday.
Yeah, Tuesday. So this is about gardening. So you were talking about raising livestock at home. Let's talk about raising vegetables at home. So according to your report, I have a copy here. And I'll put links into the show notes so everyone can go get the copies. They're both ones are public now. 1 million households in Canada intend to garden for the first time. I looked at this in this, Saskatchewan, different provinces. So what did you learn from here? In some ways, I guess it's no surprise a little bit because prices. What a great time to garden at home. Prices are going through the roof. Yeah. So is that the key driver, do you think, or what's behind all this?
Well, there's lots of things going on. I'm just curious that, like, you're a great cook, Michael, but are you a gardener?
Well, no, but
you're not perfect at everything.
No, with an asterisk. And the asterisk is my father-in-law, my Portuguese father-in-law, is an amazing gardener. Okay. And basically they give us all, they're seniors, so they don't eat a lot. We get everything he makes. Herbs. I'm limited to herbs, but I'm starting to think, and I don't really I'm just looking at the backyard. My wife laughs at me when I say we should garden. She goes, "Why? We've got a master gardener. He follows the moon phases and everything, and he makes amazing stuff." And
it's an art. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's there's a lot of science to it. And so this is the second time we've actually surveyed Canadians on this issue. The first time was actually
Angus Reid, right? We're partnered with Angus Reid in this one, yeah.
Yeah, and so thank you, Angus Reid, for all the data. Back in 2020, 2 years ago, we did survey Canadians. The gardening rate in Canada was 51%, which was actually higher than expected. This time around, it's 52%. Now you're saying, well, how come if there's 1 million more gardeners, why aren't we seeing a higher number? Well, basically what we're finding out is that a lot of people are giving up. Yeah. But the number of people starting gardens will outnumber the people who are giving up gardening this year, essentially.
Well, it's like an over-under. I saw that, and I guess, and we talked about this on our episode for the research. It's hard, right? Being a gardener's hard.
Oh, absolutely. It's a lot of work.
It's a lot of work. Now, there's some products out there that make it less a lot of work, so to speak. I was looking at some products from Lee Valley Tools out of Ottawa. They've got some above-ground things, if you want to get your feet wet, because I was looking at them for myself to raise some carrots, do some carrots or something. But so there's right. But the net of it is, if I do the math, more people this year will be having a home garden, even with the ones that stop, right? So there's momentum. Right. There is certainly a momentum behind it, right?
Oh, absolutely. And so garden centers will be busy over the next little while, and that's a great thing. I mean, for education, people will have probably a better appreciation for what our farmers are doing. And gardening is hard work. And the other thing, we also noticed that 41% of people who intend to garden this year want to do it to save money. Now, I don't know about you, Michael, but I'm not entirely convinced you can actually save money when you garden unless you have capacity and you commit to gardening for several years to amortize some of the things that you bought at Lee Valley. It can get very, if you go over the top with gardening, it can cost you a lot of money. So that's the thing about gardening. So a lot of people are unlike 2 years ago, they were pushed because of some food insecurity, overpowering emotion.
Or they were looking for a hobby, right? They were looking for a hobby too. I mean, people had more time on their hands.
And still today, it's the same thing. The vast majority of gardeners see it as a hobby, which I think it is. But I've always believed that gardening is very much about allowing city dwellers or anybody to connect with agriculture, to connect with the earth, with Mother Earth in some serene way. And if you feel proud about growing your own tomatoes, your own cucumbers, power to you. It's great. And the other thing that came out of the two other things that came out of our survey this year that didn't come out before, people believe that what they grow is of better quality than at the store. And two, half of new gardeners this year will be under the age of 35.
So interesting, right? I mean, there's so many benefits. I'm looking at the why you don't, and number one is I don't have space in my backyard. Again, I'm going to put a link. I'm not sponsored here by Lee Valley Tools, but they've got some things that make it easier to grow.
It's a great shop in Ottawa, and I think they have stores. Where do they have stores?
Yeah, they're coast to coast, and they've got a great online site. I know the folks, Jason and the folks from Lee Valley Tools. They run a great business, and they're very passionate about their business. Anyway, so that's one study. The next study, which I found super interesting, is this idea of plant-based versus meat in terms of you call them analogues. So basically, you compare, and I've had this question. We've kind of talked about it. Okay, with the rising prices of the trifecta, is this the doorway for meat plant-based substitutes? Because we certainly saw lots of them at SIAL. So what did the study tell you?
Well, I mean, back in the fall when we started to work on this with Better Card Analytics with Melanie Morrison, who we had on our podcast a while ago, I mean, they do amazing work. And so I sat down with Melanie and said, listen, why don't we look into diets, the cost of a diet, the omnivore diet versus vegans, and who is actually spending more money out there. And we got to a point where we thought, this is complicated. I mean, as you can imagine, Michael, I mean, you can go in many different directions with diets, right? So that's why we basically stuck to a very simple formula. Let's look at the real stuff versus analogs. And that's it. So we looked at turkey versus plant-based turkey. We looked at beef versus plant-based beef, and so on. And we don't use plant-based in our report. We use vegetable analogs because a lot of the livestock industry in general is not overly comfortable with the term plant-based because they actually believe themselves that their product is also plants.
Right. Right.
And to a certain extent, I actually agree with that. I mean, and I've never been comfortable with the term plant-based, really. So that's why we call them vegetable analogs in our report.
I think we got to come up with a better name than that, by the way.
Yeah, I know. Analogues. Exactly. Analogues. The nomenclature, I mean, it's like anything. The nomenclature of a category does evolve over time. But this report really, and so before, I mean, last year or 2 years ago, I thought, yeah, absolutely. Plant-based products or vegetable analogs are more expensive. But with higher meat prices, I thought, maybe we're looking at, a wash here. Both would be the same. So we looked into we actually collected over 1 million data points.
Wow.
1 million in just
Thanks
a few
to Better
days.
Card, right? I mean, that's data. You're so impressed with that Better Card data, right?
Man, it's just incredible. Oh, sorry. We looked at both categories. We thought we're looking at a wash here. Either way, it's probably the same price. No, my goodness. So we surveyed prices from January to March, only to realize that on average, vegetable analogs are 38% more expensive than meat products. Even with the increases we've seen recently with beef and chicken and pork and accusation of collusion as well on top of that. I mean, I was just floored. What, were you surprised by results?
Yes and no. I mean, just just speaking anecdotally, when I go out to shop, when I buy like a meat substitute for my burgers, I'm like, it's not cheap. It's not inexpensive. And
Yeah,
we've talked about on the show, if we go back a bunch of episodes where we've had analogs, the pricing's all over the map, right? Like, you talked about one of the issues is they got to get their heads around pricing because,
yeah.
it's sky high or it's low, and where it
But
winds
I
up in the
think
case.
I do think that the category is at the crossroads here.
Hmm.
So we now know that it's not competitive. It exists to create this bridge. We all know that it creates. I don't think the category was created for meat eaters. It was created for
Hmm.
curious
Hmm.
consumers
Hmm.
who are looking to for some variety when it comes
Yeah,
to proteins, and that's basically. Yeah,
flexitarians, as we
exactly.
like to
And
call
there's
them, right?
about 3.5 million flexitarians out there.
Yeah.
Part-time vegetarians looking at reducing the amount of animal proteins they ingest, which is great. Uh, but if you're asking me right now, from a socioeconomic perspective, if vegetable analogs are an option for consumers on a tight budget, the answer is no.
Mm.
And I think it's going to be a problem over the next
It,
few months, over the
is
next
it
few years.
is it a result of the high cost of? Is it a scale issue? Is it a high cost of processing? You would think if the industry was thinking about this, they would take the opportunity to lower the prices to do exactly what we hope to see or what we thought we might see, which is, now's the time. Strike now. Meat prices are going up. Never a better chance. Never a better time to try alternatives. But it doesn't seem like that
Yeah.
coordination is happening, right?
I mean, on this show with trying stuff, we've tried a few products, and
Hmm.
frankly, I think, and you would agree with me on that, Michael, is that products are getting better,
Yeah.
but they're getting more expensive to make as well. The
Mm.
fascination of actually recreating the taste that people are accustomed to with the trifecta within the
Mm.
trifecta, like beef and chicken and pork, is getting companies to spend a lot of money to produce
Mm.
analogs. That's the one thing, but the other thing, what we've noticed with the data that came out of Better Card Analytics is that beef prices or meat prices did go up, but analogs have gone up as well in the winter, which I thought was very interesting. And
Interesting.
so you're in. So to answer your question, I think you got a costing issue to
Hmm.
produce these products, and two, margins. I think basically grocers are committed to make these products. They're committed to a price point,
Mm.
and I'm not sure over time because sales are starting to cap in
Yeah, I
plant
guess they
based.
see. I
So
guess I guess the grocers might look at it. We'd love to get a grocer on here. We'll have to get a grocer on, talk about this. Maybe they see it as a specialty product and then price it accordingly. And specialty products tend to be priced as if the people who are buying them are a specialty buyer and perhaps have a little
yeah,
more budget to spend, which is probably the case heretofore, if I can say heretofore on this podcast.
but if you're asking me if is the category positioned to convert people
Mm.
from a dietary perspective, the answer is absolutely not.
Well, we'll have to get my friend Joey Bernardo, who's now vice president of meat and seafood at Longo's. Great friend of mine, and now he's in charge of that. So we'll have to either get him on or get him in behind the scenes and see what he thinks about um, all this stuff, meat substitutes and all that. So that'll
Meat
be kind of
substitutes,
fun. Get inside.
excellent.
So just before we get to trying stuff, I had one thing. It's just because it's connected to this conversation. So
Yeah.
you tweeted that in Israel, some interesting things are happening with lab produced, if I got this right, lab produced milk. Um,
Yes. It's called
what?
precision fermentation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
talk
So
about this
this
though.
is
I've never heard of
yeah.
this. What's
So
this?
this is a technology that now exists for a while, and it's basically using micro organisms to replicate dairy proteins essentially without cows. You can
Come on.
actually make milk now without cows.
So again, to be
Yeah.
clear to me and the audience, we're not talking about dairy substitutes here. We're not talking about oat or
No, it's not
soy
vegetable.
or
No, absolutely
not
not. You're
vegetable based.
basically
It's
creating proteins in a lab. And so
wow.
I'm actually writing a book on proteins, right? It's going to be released in the fall in French. It's going to be called the Protein Revolution, and we're going to be talking in the book. We're talking about all of these innovations that are coming up, and frankly, dairy's in trouble because now Israel has just built this massive plant.
Yeah, huge, right? That's the other thing that jumped out at me is, Israel's not really a big place physically, but it's a big plant, so it must be important. Is always my assessment because.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. And so this particular plant can replace 50,000 cows. So from a Canadian perspective,
50,000 cows.
Yes. So from a Canadian perspective, you're looking at replacing 200 dairy farms. So, wow. and in Nova Scotia, that's what we have, 200 dairy farms. So
that's what happens. Yeah.
This is pretty interesting stuff. And frankly, when you think about animal welfare, recalls, food safety, I mean, there are a bunch of stuff that really will give an advantage to precision fermentation. And so the company's name is ReMilk. And I don't think that the dairy farmers of Canada are ready for this. Absolutely. And they've announced that they'll be carbon neutral by 2040. Good luck to them. And that's great. Yeah. But I don't think they can compete against that. They just there's no way.
Well, there'll be, that industry in general will compete on the wholesomeness versus the lab. So it'll be, a generation of that discussion.
Lots going on.
So interesting. I mean, yeah. Well, I'll put a link in the show notes to that company, and it tags on to the protein creation in Singapore, and that we've talked about. So interesting stuff. And this would be
Didn't you notice that it didn't get a whole lot of press in Canada?
No.
Because I picked it up from the U.S. I'm in the U.S. right now, so that's why I was able to read about it. Yeah.
Well, let's keep our eye on that, and maybe we can get them to send us some of that milk. That'll be so interesting.
Oh yeah, I don't know.
Right? That'll be an interesting.
I'm in Tampa Bay. I can get that product. I'm sure they would have some issues at customs with that one in Canada. Dairy farmers, they are looking at you.
They were looking at you when you walked by.
Big Brother Dairy.
Oh, we love those guys.
Yes, we do.
We love them, and we loved all their people and their cheeses at SIAL. It was
we don't accept their checks. Did I say that out loud?
Oops. You did. All right. Well, let's transition from that into our trying stuff segment. Again, I'm going to try the forbidden Asian roasted veggie bowl. There it is. And the instructions on this are I need to go microwave it for a few minutes. So I'm going to go do that.
4 or 5 minutes. And you have to keep, so you take this out and you have to keep the lid on.
Really? Okay.
Yep.
I'll keep the lid on. And all right. Well, I'm going to go do that. There it is. Okay. And we'll be back in 5 minutes.
Okay.
All right, welcome back. We are back with our trying stuff episode, a very popular trying stuff episode. In this episode, we're featuring PuraVida Foods, frozen, and so generous. They gave us all kinds of, what's that, the tahini bowl. We got these pouches. Let's check this out. Mediterranean couscous. We got...
all my pouches are still in my freezer.
You need a separate freezer, I think. Lock it up, keep it away from the kids. Basmati orzo mushroom pilaf. And then we got these great bowls.
So many choices.
What's this one? Cilantro chicken baja bowl. Talk about convenience. And Toronto-based company. Thank you very much for sending this along.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you.
Yeah. Reminder to all the listeners, we don't get compensated or paid or anything like this. We just ask people if they want to be part of trying stuff, and they send us stuff.
You don't?
We do not. We get compensated with delicious, innovative food.
we get free lunch. Dude,
we get free lunch.
That's right.
Exactly. So I am trying the forbidden artesian roasted veggie bowl. There you go.
Yeah,
that's what I'm trying.
Just the name itself is attractive, right? I mean, how many times do you see the word forbidden in a grocery store? Like seriously,
you know what? You're absolutely right. I mean, the way the write-ups are of this stuff is whoever is doing the packaging and the write-ups, kudos to them, because it's, it just makes forbidden artesian roasted veggie bowl with Calabrian chili sauce. I mean,
it's just
it's really well done.
Poetic.
Right?
It's very poetic. Mine is a tahini Buddha bowl. I just feel like doing yoga. you know.
Well, let's okay, so here it is. I've heated it up in the microwave. They say 4 to 5 minutes. So
That's
it
right.
comes let me just get this in front of the camera. So it comes like this, and I'm just going to peel it open here.
That's right. I
And
already peeled it.
there's my bowl. So I don't
And
spill it here.
it's a material. It's
Paperboard, I think.
Yeah, it's paperboard. Yeah, very environmentally friendly.
So I'm going to tuck in here. Let's see how this. I've let it cool a bit because it was pretty hot. But what's this one? This one's got
let's try
black rice. Oh, cheers! Give it a try.
Yeah, right. Cheers.
Cheers. What a medley of flavors.
Doesn't taste frozen. I can tell you that. So mine has cauliflower, lentils, peppers, rice. Oh my goodness.
Mine's got a bit of this sauce in it that's making it so fresh.
Mm-hmm. I didn't add anything, like zero. No salt, pepper,
nothing.
Sausage. I'm just eating it like that. It's amazing. It's
very good. Really good. I mean, this has got organic black rice, organic wheat berry, tricolor quinoa, all organic, fire roasted yellow squash. What a medley of flavors and a rich Calabrian chili sauce. It's delicious.
The eco-friendly packaging is impressive. Very impressive.
I mean, there's a lot of impressive things around this. You know, from it starts at the packaging. You know, your eco-friendly bowls, your quick, ready, nutritious. Like, talk to me a bit about. It seems like COVID was a bit of a tailwind for the frozen food section. I'm more of a fan of frozen food than I used to be because it's kind of like some things that the quality in my mind has gone up. You know, from at least my perception, and then you know, it's a great thing to have on hand. It's convenient, and it feels like the right thing to do.
No, it's really. I mean, the freezer aisle has been synonymous to poor quality for many years, and so companies were up against that. But I would say for the last decade or so, we've seen a lot of quality stuff entering the market, including this stuff. More and more, and people are looking for convenience. They're looking for stable prices, affordable prices. The freezer aisle is starting to see higher prices, but it's nothing like produce or the meat counter. So it's a really safe place for people to save a buck or two. And the quality, there's little or no compromises to make it now.
That's what jumps out at me the most is, you know, let's call it the stigma of frozen, that you're making some kind of sacrifice to have frozen fruits and vegetables. But the reality is, as exhibited with this product, there's no sacrifice there. And you know, it's good food security, good for supply chain. You know, it's fresh frozen. I don't know the tech behind it, but whatever the tech they're using is pretty cool.
Just keep on talking. I'm eating now.
Yeah, I'll just keep on talking. I mean, made with organic ingredients, no artificial flavors, vegan, if that matters to you.
Yeah.
You know, just eco-friendly packaging. You pop it in the microwave, you keep it frozen, and you got fresh, nutritious food that tastes great. Like, if you didn't tell me, if you put this on a side of one of my barbecue cooks and just served it up, I would think, congratulations, that's a sophisticated meal. So,
oh yeah, no, it's very well done. So absolutely, yeah.
Now, if you go, I'll put kudos. I'll put the link
PuraVida.
PuraVida. There we go. I'll put a link in the show notes because if you search PuraVida or PuraVida, you know, I searched about 10 different ways. PuraVida is dog food. So that's not what it is. PuraVida is a bar or a coffee shop, but PuraVida -foods gets you where you need to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll put a link in the show notes. Try this product. Go find it. I'm sure there's a store locator.
Yeah.
But try it. I enjoyed this episode of.
Thank you so much for sending this stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, very generous. Yeah. Thank you, PuraVida Foods.
All right.
All right. Let's move on. So a couple of last things to talk about. I want to talk about Twitter's new owner and a little dust up I had. With Twitter. Little funny thing. So what do you think? I mean, you're a big Twitter person. You're on Twitter quite often. Do you have any thoughts about, you know, thank God Elon has saved us from free speech, because I didn't feel free to talk on Twitter. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of stories. There's a business element to this. Can this ever work? I mean, my God, he pulled what, 30 billion of his own cash, billion, for a $45 billion thing. Like, there's a business story. You're a big fan of Twitter. You're on it often. I am as well.
Love the medium. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I love the medium to get informed and to inform. So both ways. But I honestly do not have an opinion about this at all. Because the one thing that surprises me, it seems the acquisition seems quite divisive. I mean, a lot of people, I actually did not expect. I just took, I take Twitter as it is. I don't judge. I mean, content is content, and I get to decide whether or not this content is important to me or not. So that's the extent of my analysis, really. What do you think, Michael?
Well, it's a fascinating business story. I mean, I don't know how it's going to work, really. I mean, and if you want to learn more about the business story, tune in to Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. They had a great guest on, and they covered from top to bottom. Galloway didn't think the deal was going to happen. Kara Swisher thought it was. They had an analyst who says, "Oh yeah, it's going to happen." And so it's a fascinating business. It's one of the most interesting business stories of our time, I think, just in the way the money came together and look. But at the end of the day,
I think what's at stake, or what people are talking about, is certainly about information democracy, which is interesting. So I mean, I've heard a lot of people judge Twitter as a forum, saying that it was too leaning in one direction. Honestly, I don't really care. I just, right at the lab, we actually have computer scientists analyzing sentiment on Twitter.
Really,
to me, Twitter is data. That's what it is to me. I'm not trying to influence people to think a certain way. I'm just trying to figure out where is the wind blowing. That's really what matters to me.
Sentiment analysis. Well, I guess the last thing I'd say on the business part is everybody thinks content moderation is easy, but it's not. Let me just put it to you that way. They got a big hornet's nest to deal with there. So after the SIAL show, go ahead.
I have one wish list for Elon Musk, though.
Okay, Elon, if you're listening,
add an editing feature to your tweets, like as soon as possible. Jesus, like seriously, we need that, and get rid of those bots.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. A lot going on there. There's a lot going on.
And so, other than that, I'm fine with Twitter as it is, to be honest.
Yeah. So I love Twitter. I had a little little dust up. So I went after SIAL. I drove north. I drove from Toronto to Montreal, and I went to Saint Viateur Bagels, which is, I was on, my favorite bagels, right? I love those bagels.
Love that place.
So I drove up and got a couple of dozen, and then I just posted a picture on Twitter of me. And then there was some kind of conversation. I was only half paying attention. Corey Mintz, who's been a guest on the show, there was some kind of debate between somebody was saying how Montreal bagels were terrible compared to New York bagels, and I'm like, what are you talking about? Here's a picture of me in front of this bagels. They're the best. Just harmless stuff. But I guess through a bunch of people who I'm connected to, somehow it got to some media in the States, and so just connected to Tucker Carlson's producer of all people, and he's got a different group of followers. So I was just getting hate. I was getting bombarded with, "Are you joking? Is this some kind of joke? What's going on?" I stepped into bagel wars. There you go. There's my
with one picture.
Well, it's the fact I said they were the best, and I think the New York bagel fans.
But they are the best.
Hey!
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to be in New York in a month, so I'll let you know.
You go to Brooklyn, and I've tasted New York bagels. They're wonderful. They're all wonderful. Listen, they're all.
And by the way, I do want to say that bagels outside of Montreal aren't good. But there is one place in Halifax which opened up about 2 years ago in the middle of COVID. An Indian family, started this bagel place. They call it Montreal Bagels. Okay. And I'm always curious. I want to try things. So I went in there. Okay. I went in there and bought a dozen, and I sat in the car. I could not get home and wait to eat one of those. But I had to eat one while I was driving home because it was smelling so good.
Yeah.
They were just out of the wood oven. Okay. Those bagels, they're not the same as Montreal bagels. They're not the same, but they're darn close. They're the closest thing I've ever eaten outside of Montreal. Oh
Wow.
yeah. Oh yeah. It
I love
was
a good
so
bagel. I love a good bagel.
and frankly, every Saturday, if I can, I go and buy my dozen there. And
Nice.
it's I believe it's $6 or $7. It's not very expensive.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
I tell you, not all those bagels survived the trip home to Toronto. Let me just put it that way.
I suspect.
My wife is like, "Hey, I thought you got us 2 dozen. There's not 2 dozen bagels here." I said, "Oh, they must have miscounted or something." And then you look at the car and it's just filled with poppy seeds.
I mean, if honestly, if you would have resisted the smell from Montreal to Toronto, I would say you're not human.
Something's wrong with you.
And the other thing, I mean,
Very good.
it's to your advantage if you get pulled over. You got something for the cops.
Yes, officer. Would you like a delicious Montreal bagel? Yes.
If the guy's in Brockville, he'll want one.
All right. Well, listen, it's been a great episode. It was a solo episode. We got a lot going on, actually, for the podcast coming up. You and I will be back together, actually, at the Restaurants Canada show in a matter of weeks, which is fantastic. Yep. Actually, in a matter of a couple of weeks.
So I have a trip next week to Calgary. I'm back in Tampa, and I'm actually flying into Toronto for the RC show. So looking forward to that, and looking forward to see you, which is where this whole podcast started, really, a couple of years ago.
That's right. It all started with some thoughts around Restaurant Canada show. We'll have lots of bonus episodes now starting to come out from SIAL. I'm actually starting to tape bonus episodes for Canadian Grand Prix New Product Awards. So some of the finalists in that. Lots of great content. And we're going to take a hiatus as we always do over the summer. But I'll be pushing out these on banking, and we'll be putting out all these episodes highlighting these great entrepreneurs pretty much all summer. And then we'll resume kind of our live, so to speak. It's all live, but we'll resume the podcast in the fall just to kind of put some schedule ahead of people about what's going on. But until then, until I see you in person in Toronto, here in Toronto, the Restaurants Canada show, my friend, that's it. Let's wrap it up. So thanks, everybody, for listening. I'm Michael LeBlanc, the president of Avian LeBlanc & Company, host of a bunch of podcasts, and food and bagel lover. And you are?
And a chef.
And a YouTube chef.
Yes, Last Request Barbecue, which I think I should be getting an invitation soon as a guest on your show. Right?
That's right. We have to decide what your last request.
Promised.
I promise. You're in. You're in. All right. So if you're listening to this,
so you are Michael LeBlanc,
you are
the greatest, and I'm Sylvain Charlebois.
The greatest, the food professor, and you can find us. Please subscribe if you're just listening to this first time on any of the major platforms, and check out our YouTube site, which with lots of bonus content. And until we speak to you again, be safe and enjoy the food that you're blessed with.
Take care.